Welcome back, everyone. Matthew Timpanic here on the Timpanic Law Stream. I'm just doing a quick video on this case. I wasn't going to go live and everything, but I wanted to give an idea of a case that I've been following that one of my followers actually pointed me to. It's the trial of James Craig out of Colorado. This is a dentist who is charged with his wife's murder. And it when you hear that, it's like, okay, that sounds pretty standard. But the facts are pretty um, egregious, if it were. They are the dentist allegedly poisoned his wife, was carrying on an affair with another woman. But on top of that, which is the craziest part, is two of his lawyers had to withdraw. The first of which didn't agree with what the defendant wanted him to do for this trial strategy. That's an ethical consideration. His other lawyer has been arrested under suspicion of arson of his own residence. So it's pretty crazy when you think about how this trial has gotten to. I believe, if I read the media coverage packet correctly, there's going to be only openings, closings, and jury verdict that is going to be covered. I've actually texted with Law and Crime, and they're going to be there and they're going to be covering what they can. Because this does seem pretty wild. And when you hear the facts and evidence about it, the investigator, well, the defendant allegedly tried to solicit a plot to have the lead investigator on the case killed. This man, James Craig, the defendant, allegedly had potassium cyanide sent to his dental office when one of the nurses alerted them to it. And there's no reason a dentist should have potassium cyanide. It's actually, and it gets horrific. The wife actually texts her husband that she doesn't feel right, that she feels drugged. And 3 days later, she becomes brain dead in this case. I think they have like 5, 6 kids. So it's going to be a horrific horrific case evidentiary. I think I read that the investigators compiled about 50 pages of evidence, 50 pages, including Google searches like how do you kill someone with potassium cyanide, and is the arsenic going to show up in an autopsy? Not really great Google searches. How are you able to order poisons without being an FBI list of some kind? I think being a medical doctor, being a dentist, it probably flew under the radar. But I have to think after this case, there's going to be new safeguards being put in place so someone can actually a dentist can't purchase potassium cyanide, which I have no idea what you would actually need that for if you're a dentist. So when you think about what's going to be presented, this is from what I have read, it appears to be a very strong case evidentiary wise. The Google searches are bad. They are going to be unexplainable. What's going to be difficult is the fact that he tries to have the lead investigator killed. That's going to be a huge problem. He has an ongoing affair with another woman. That's also going to be potential motive that kind of get his wife out of the way so he can be with his girlfriend, if it were. And when you're thinking about what is actually to be presented in a criminal case, I don't expect too much from the defense on this. They have a real uphill battle in this case. And it's going to be ones that the jury's just going to look over at him and they're going to hear all the evidence. It's found on his computer. And they're not, I don't think it's going to take them particularly long after they hear the evidence. Like I said, but everybody's innocent until proven guilty. You never know what a jury's going to do. But like I said, the evidence is compelling, very compelling, in fact. I heard he was questioned why he was ordering it and said some sort of experiment. Yeah, potassium cyanide. Yeah, that nobody's going to believe that. You think if there, oh my God. Oh, yes. The, I don't know if Alan Jackson would ever take this case just simply because um, you don't want to follow up a big trial win with a legitimate loss. If we're just talking from a, um, yes, I'll hold on. I'll get to those other cases. You don't want to follow up a huge national, worldwide case where you won with a case where it's getting notoriety and then you lose. And then people are like, oh, well, did he just get lucky? Now you want that aura going into the Bohm case or something out in California, the death of the Pepperdine student, the four Pepperdine students. I actually did an appearance on Long Crime with Chris Stewart a few days ago. I actually didn't find it; just a bunch of free Karen Reed people found it and then just clipped 45 seconds of it. It's pretty hilarious, actually. Would you see that it really just doesn't end for them? Did you follow the Raul Valle case? I did briefly. I did a little bit. When I saw that the jury was hung like hopelessly, whenever you see that, you know you didn't. If you're the prosecution, you did not pick a good jury because that case should have been much more straightforward than it was. Um, and what I can tell you is self defense cases, even weak ones, um, is a very they become objectively much more difficult to prove. Here in Florida, the prosecution have to prove that you first weren't acting in self defense if you file a motion for immunity before the case can proceed. And even at trial, they still have to prove it again. They overcome the burden. And if there's like scintilla evidence that you're acting in self defense, a jury is going to give you the benefit of the doubt, especially when the victim is no saint. So I think that when I saw the hung jury and when I see hopelessly deadlocked, usually the hopelessly people are I'm not convicting this person no matter what. And they usually spin the people um, over to the not guilty side. And I think they were deadlocked on assault and stuff like that. I don't really think they're going to retry it because assault, as opposed to murder or manslaughter, and then go into assault, it just seems like a joke. I'm still reeling from the Reed verdict. Yeah, it is like it's pretty crazy how the case is just kind of. I thought like when the case would end, it would actually end, but it's just turned into a oh look, now content creators going on like a victory lap on it, and it's like it was pretty crazy seeing a high level individual at a major network admit that they did not end up believing the conspiracy. And even though they kind of leaned into it the whole time. So that was very interesting for me to see. But like for me, it's you go on to the next case and you, because there are plenty other cases in this country. And there's a lot of people who they need analysis on in this. And it's not just one case. So I think that when the civil case comes back up, we're definitely going to talk about it some more. I think the defendant filed a motion to dismiss the complaint, and it's just one of those we need the billable hours because yeah, just because something wasn't proven in criminal court, civil court is a much lower burden. Preponderance of the evidence, 51%, 50.1 if you really want to get technical about it. Yes, Frazier, Michael Baum. Not sure I'm going to be win either. Going 104 miles an hour. Yeah, it is. So that was the case I did for Long Crime, and I was just hearing because there was a witness who came up to him next to him at a intersection, and he like rolled. He's like, "Hey, you need to slow down. You're going to hurt somebody." That's what the witness claims to have said, and but what I explained, what Alan Jackson's likely going to do is, all right, how do we know that you actually did say that? What proof do you have? You just saying it here. You could just be trying to unburden your soul or something of that nature. That's what I said. He's likely going to argue about that fact. And then he said it looked like he was like texting and driving. That this is going to be key. What the biggest mistake law enforcement often makes is they don't bring absolutely everything, or at least try to. Because if you don't try to get something, you're just opening up an attack for defense counsel. I remember I was doing a sale of marijuana case 3 years ago, And there was a video, and 2 law enforcement eyewitnesses ID'd my guy. But the problem is that they were saying, oh, there was Cash App transactions, there were Facebook, and they never tracked any of it down. Snapchat, and it's like, all right, did you go to Snapchat? Make sure, no. Did you go to Cash App? No. Did you go to Facebook? No. And juries are like, why didn't you do this? And if you are an attorney who can knows exactly what reasonable doubt is, failing to do something, failing to investigate is grounds for reasonable doubt. And that's definitely what they need to make sure they've done. They need to have this tied up with a big red bow, because Alan Jackson's coming. He's going to come with there was no collision, or the black box data is not accurate. Something along those lines. Or maybe try to mitigate it that he just lost control of his vehicle and it's more vehicular homicide than second-degree murder. Because then the judge has much more leniency and is much more latitude. Murder, they don't really. Even manslaughter, but vehicular homicide, they got a little too. I'm worried for the victims' families in the case Alan Jackson took. I hope they're ready for endless harassment. I've started to see accounts kind of jump on this case, and they're already, without even knowing any of the facts, they're like, oh, like Alan Jackson's, I'm like, he's been on it for 5 minutes. He did, like, people were saying, it's like, oh, how do you know what the defense is? Like, they asked me a question, what I would do. And this is based on the limited information I have available. That's where I would go. And unfortunately, some of these people are just always going to be they're free Karen Reed forever. And like legit, it's a cult almost, which is crazy. Your entire interview was posted on Law and Crime YouTube. I watched it. Oh, thank you. Yeah, and this is the unfortunate reality is juries, as we saw with that, and the reason we talked about BAME, and I'll come back to Craig in a second. What we saw in the Karen Reed case is the jurors, like one of the juror talked to TMZ. He talked about how it was, I needed to be like, if I was 99.9% sure, I wouldn't be able to convict. That's not how this works. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, this guy probably shouldn't have been on this jury very clearly, because that's not what the law is. And that's not how it's supposed to be interpreted. So when you think of what this case was, and I think I saw Alan Jackson on a stream with an individual who will remain nameless, say that they didn't want any people with PhDs and engineers on the jury. And because they thought they would overthink it. Translation: we didn't want smart people on the jury because they would know our whole defense was actually BS. And if somebody was on the jury who actually could do accident reconstruction, they could explain what Welcher and or Shannon Burgess were trying to tell us. It's that you can't everything. So when I'm doing jury selection, when I was a prosecutor, I would always make sure to ask who needs to have a video to be able to convict. And some people would throw their hands up, and then get those people off your jury immediately, because they're not going to be satisfied. They're not going to be able to, like, I don't know. I can't do it based on testimony. And a lot of these people on that jury, they wanted way more than could have possibly been given to them. And they could never going to convict no matter what. And so Hank Brennan, like I've said a million times, tried an exceptional case. He picked a bad jury. And that jury, that case was lost during jury selection. In hindsight, when you're getting questions about, is a video evidence? Come on. We're just being ridiculous. Yeah, they're questioning the black box and saying it was 75 miles an hour. Okay, so it's still 75 in a 45. So he's still speeding, and you have evidence of somebody else doing that. The hope is, excuse me. The hope is that the jury says like, well, if it's 75, maybe he just lost track of it. He's speeding, but he's not going so fast. And maybe gets mitigated for murder to manslaughter or vehicular homicide. That's kind of what the argument. It's going to be interesting what Alan Jackson actually tries to um, try to argue. He's not going to be able to argue there was no collision because the jury is just going to be like, you are in the wrong state making the wrong argument in the wrong trial. It's not going to fly there. And the jury, that prosecutor is well aware of why Hank Brennan lost that case. So you can be sure they're going to voir dire the jury up the wazoo and make sure we got no idiots on our jury and people who are going to overthink it and think it's things that don't really exist. But back to what I was saying about James Craig, it is it's a good situation of criminals just being dumb because when you see, because they have 50 pages of evidence and they're going to come every last one of those pieces of evidence when it comes to time to get the jury to deliberate. Because, yeah, that beyond a reasonable doubt is a very high burden. And unfortunately for the prosecution, in many cases, it's becoming higher and higher each time it goes in front of a jury. That juries just want to be proven beyond all shadow of a doubt. They want to know absolutely in their bones that this person committed it and that it was absolutely, then the evidence agrees with it. That's not really how it is, how it's supposed to be, how it was designed. Beyond a reasonable doubt is not beyond a shadow of a doubt. So I have to think that unless there's some crazy, because I believe I heard with the Boehm case, Frazier Boehm, is that he was like speeding away from a road rage incident. That's what I think I heard. So that may be like, oh, that's why he was speeding. He was only going 75. He wasn't trying to hurt anybody. And this is just an unfortunate accident. If I were to guess, that's where I think it's going to go. Because Alan Jackson's going to get paid a lot of money on this case, but it has to have that appeal. He has to think he's going to need to be able to win, and he needs to think that's going to get a lot of attention. Maybe just because he's on it or because of some kind of defense he wants to see kind of tried, if it were. But yeah, so I think that's where we're going to end it. I'm going to be covering James Craig. Like, I'll do a video on openings, closings, jury verdict, whatever I can get my hands on. But for now, thanks for tuning in. This has been Matthew Tympanik here of Tympanik Law. Thank you.